So just in case you have not noticed, I'll point out to you that our gospel readings for the last 3 weeks have been a little bit on the long side. This is the way John operates, the Gospel of John. Yes, he does take a little bit longer to tell his stories and to make his points. But every one of the gospel writers has their own paintbrush that they use to paint their own unique stories of what Jesus is like. And John's paintbrush indeed is unique. So why does it take him such a long time to make his point? Well, John's Jesus has a particular formula that he uses when he is talking and addressing people. First of all, the thing to note is that in John's gospel, Jesus does not perform miracles. Jesus performs signs, right? And these miracles in the other gospels are there to show what Jesus can do. But in John's gospel, it's very important for John's Jesus to be God. God and Jesus are the same. Jesus and God are the same. And John is trying to help the people make that connection. And so these signs are there, not as shows of power, but as ways of pointing to God. Because that's what signs do, don't they? They point. All right, so in John's gospel, Jesus performs signs. And then the sign is followed by a dialogue, some sort of back and forth between Jesus and the people. And that can take a little bit. And then after that, there's something called a discourse. And that's when Jesus explains what just happened and makes some sort of theological sense about it. So we've got a sign, we've got dialogue, and we've got discourse. Now, the good news about the passage today is that it only contains the first two parts. The next part's going to come down the road around Easter time. So stay tuned for that. But what is happening today? Well, you caught a little bit of the humor in the passage. Jesus heals a man that is born blind. Now, can you imagine that? He didn't become blind later in life. He was born blind. Had never seen a sunset, never seen a sunrise, never seen a flower. And he knows about Jesus, and Jesus wants to heal him. But the first thing his students say, the disciples, they are just students, they examine Jesus and say, who sinned that this person was born blind? Was it her parents? And Jesus, the first thing he does is put aside the idea that sin has something to do with the way that we're born, because it doesn't. So he doesn't say that anybody did anything wrong for this person to be born the way that they are. And then Jesus spits on the ground and he makes mud out of his saliva and he puts it on the man's eyes. Now, I mentioned that we talked about Jesus being God. The first thing that God does is create. He takes earth and he forms life. So this is pointing to God right here from the beginning. Jesus, out of his own spit and the earth, is making something new. A new life is coming into being. And so the man goes and he comes back and he can see. From what I can tell, Jesus just kind of fades into the background because the religious leaders sweep in and they are utterly flabbergasted by this. What in the world is going on? Isn't this the person that we used to say sitting begging? This guy is supposed to stay that way. What happened? And so the back and forth begins. The back and forth begins. The religious leaders are trying to figure it out. And they go to this poor man so many times. How did you get healed? And the man said, a person came, Jesus, put mud on my eyes, and now I can see. The religious leaders, we need to dig a little bit more into this. This just doesn't seem right. They go back to the man again. How did it happen? I've already told you. Nothing's changed. Well, let's go to his parents. Was he really born blind? Was that true? Could it have been just happenstance that he was healed? And then we find out that the parents are kind of scared because they know if they're caught following Jesus, they're going to be kicked out of the synagogue. And so, in the words of one of our Bible study attendees this morning, they threw their son under the bus. Yep. Way to go, Rainey. He's of age, ask him. And so they go back to him again. And they're like, why are you asking so many questions? Do you want to be his disciples too? Something must be up with this. And ultimately, the religious leaders get frustrated. They can't figure it out. They've done their due diligence. They simply don't believe him. You do not believe me. I've told you half a dozen times, the man born blind says. And so they don't believe him, and they just kick him out of his community. So I want to stay there for just a little bit and invite us to get into the headspace of this man who is born blind, who is dependent on his community his whole life to help him, perhaps to get him where he needs to go, to feed him, to provide water, to provide community. And all of a sudden, somebody decides just to take that away because they pretend it's not real. And I don't know if that's happening in your worlds right now, but in mine it is, because it seems like the things we've become dependent upon are being rolled back. The things we thought were there to keep us safe are being taken away. The things we thought were there to keep us protected and help us have a community are being pulled out from underneath us. And there are so many people out there, I feel, who are just looking for a place to belong. Yesterday, our vestry gathered for their retreat here, and we took a tour of the building, and we went to places that none of you have ever been before. We saw boiler rooms, staircases, undercrofts, all of these fun, mysterious things that churches have. And we wandered into the nursery area. And there was you can go there now and look. There's a big poster, a big cutout of a giraffe with a cheetah sitting on her back. And the words are, God has a spot for you. Get it? God has a spot for you. And I just told the vestry that everything that they are about in their ministry is intended to do that, to prepare a spot for you. And all of these commitments that we worked so hard on are there to create a sense of belonging in a world where so many people feel like they don't fit in and that they don't belong. God has a spot for every single one of us, and we are called to make sure that it's very clear that it can happen in this place. Last week, we had the privilege of hosting an incredible artist and author named Cole Arthur Riley. And belonging means something for her. As a queer, black, young woman, belonging means something for her. So I'm going to read just a little bit about what she says. She says that ultimately we are geared to belong. And we don't just welcome you or accept you. We need you. We are insufficient without you. One part's absence renders the whole impoverished in some way, even if the whole didn't previously apprehend it. In mutual belonging, it's both a gift received and a gift given. There is comfort in being welcomed, but there is dignity in knowing that your arrival just shifted a group toward deeper wholeness. Your arrival just shifted a group toward deeper wholeness. She goes on to say, people talk about God as three distinct people in one. And if this is true, it means that the whole cosmos is predicated on a diverse and holy community. And if we bear the image of God, that means we bear the image of a multitude. And that to bear the image of God in its fullness, we need each other. Belonging. We don't just welcome you or accept you, we need you. The cool thing about this passage in John today is that the man has never seen Jesus. And yet, at the end of the story, he gets kicked out of his synagogue. The things that he trusted in were taken away. And then Jesus comes back to him, taps him on the shoulder, and the man, for the first time, sees the man who healed him. And Jesus invites him into a new community. And I think that's what Jesus is doing with this man born blind today. It's the same thing that Cole Arthur Riley says. We don't just affirm you, we need you. And Jesus is beginning to create that new multitude of people. In the queer community, we call that our chosen family, because sometimes our families reject us. But Jesus is preparing the place for this man and for me and for you. And that is the message for our vestry yesterday that we hope to reflect. God has a spot for you, and it's right here. And for me, it's always been at this table, and it still is. And it's there for you too. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord has a spot for you. You belong to the Lord. Therefore, you shall lack nothing.